RadioWeek 2026.
Smart ideas for radio and audio operators.
And good day, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Radio Week, day number 2, January 27th. Today, we're talking about the challenge of retaining today's audiences as audio choice expands and listening behavior evolves. We all know what the trends are like in terrestrial radio, and we've assembled a great group of people, thought leaders and innovators around the world who are really winning their audiences. And we're going to unpack that today. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. We'd love to hear from you. So whether you have questions and even if you just want to say hi, put your name, where you're listening from or watching from in the comment section. And if you have any questions that come up at all during the hour that you want to ask, just also put them in the comments side. Sometimes it feels like we're in a void here, just talking to no one. So it's great to hear if you want to just say hi and put your name in, and we'd love to hear from you. We're gonna let's start just by going around the table here, if you will, and we'll do a couple introductions. I'm Steve Schultes. I'm Chief Technology Officer with New York Public Radio. I'm located here in New York City, where we just got dumped on by 50 centimeters of snow, 20 inches of snow, and we're digging out of that. Morgan, you're next in my window here. Can you introduce yourself, please?
You bet. Good morning from where I live. It's 6 a.m. here in Seattle. I'm the programming group director and a DJ at KEXP, where we broadcast at 90.3 FM in Seattle. We also acquired a frequency in the Bay Area in the last couple of years. So we broadcast at 92.7 in the Bay Area as well, KEXP.org around the world. You may know us from our Live on KEXP sessions on our YouTube channel and, of course, our radio broadcasts. And I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Morgan. Yeah, and we're going to dive deep into your videos and stuff. So that's a great topic. Mac, let's introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Mac Mason. I am one of the co-founders of Atunwa Digital. We work across African content creators, primarily located on the African continent, to get them, best-in-class streaming services. And then once their audiences are online, connecting various advertisers around the world to monetize those inventories. So that gives us quite a good perspective on what's happening, especially when it comes to traditional radio across the continent of Africa. Yes, primarily I am based out of Ghana, West Africa. However, I happen to be in New York City, so I was also dealing with 50 centimeters of snow.
You chose the wrong time to be in New York, Mac.
Seriously.
All right. Sammy, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sami from Finland. We don't have that much snow at the moment, even though we usually have more than you guys. At the moment, actually, today I'm joining this conversation from Stockholm because I work as the CEO for Bauer Media in Finland, but also as a co-CEO in Sweden. And I started my radio career in the morning show doing Energy, which already then was the station that was aiming for younger audience, and therefore this topic is like being close to my heart throughout the years. Even though the later years I haven't been so much working on the programming as a CEO, but still the younger audience is like what matters and creates the business future for the business.
Amazing, Sammy. Thank you. And thank you for those putting their greetings in the chat. Alex, Diane, Manis, Emmanuel, thank you. Great to see you here. Gabrielle, can you introduce yourself, please? Oh, you're muted, Gabrielle.
You would think after 6 years we would know how to do this. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gabrielle Jones, Director of Digital News and Audience at New York Public Radio. I've spent my journalism career in public media stations across the U.S., and my work has always revolved around digital audiences, reaching new audiences, and bringing those audiences back to the brand and back to the broadcast. So I'm very excited for this conversation today.
Excellent, Gabrielle. Thank you. Carl, thank you from Cape Town. A lot of people coming in from the African continent. Wonderful to see you here. Thank you. All right, so let's start to unpack this. So look, radio's always been a trusted companion, but as we know, the way people are discovering and engaging with audio is evolving super fast, right? With endless choices and on-demand habits shaping listening behavior, the challenge isn't just keeping audiences, it's creating fresh reasons to tune in and then retain them, right? So, Morgan, if I could let's start with you a little bit. A quick personal story. So I got a bunch of kids. And I think I'm the coolest dad because I turned them on to KEXP some time ago, and they so I discovered it for them, and now we have a little chat. We have a chat group on our phones, and it's just the boys and I. I have all boys, but and we talk about three things. Well, first we talk about beer. They're all drinking age, so it's okay. But so we have a beer chat. And then we have a music chat. And like, oh, heard this on KEXP over the weekend or whatever. And it's always going back and forth. And then the third thing is quirky stories about New York City, about like the club events and things like that. So already we've seen, I've seen this generation basically gravitating to our stations here, but in much different ways. They're not getting, obviously, look, we're in New York, and they're not going to get in their car and tune into KEXP. The laws of physics prohibit that, and the laws of the FCC. But streaming, they can do it anywhere. They show up they were here at my house over the weekend because I have an emergency power, and they were scared about losing power. So we had a full house, and the first question is that, Dad, get your Sonos on and tune it to KEXP. So no pressure, but I just wanted to let you know what I'm seeing personally. So Morgan, can you tell us about how you've done that to grasp this younger audience and what you're doing to keep them?
Yeah, that's actually a story we hear a lot about family who are living in different places, connecting over just chatting about our playlist at KEXP. Also push back that you can, in fact, listen to KEXP anywhere in your car, because if you have CarPlay, you can absolutely stream our app. Our app plays well with CarPlay on Android and iPhone. So you can actually listen in your car wherever you are. It doesn't have to be on the terrestrial radio broadcast. The way that KEXP has connected people has been fairly natural, I would say. But I think the overarching reason that happens is because our mission is so wide, and that's to enrich your life through music discovery. So we can play any music we want on the radio. The curation is completely in the hands of the DJs. We do ask that new music gets played half of every hour, essentially. And so you're hearing brand new cutting edge music up against an old familiar favorite, up against a deep cut, something that you wouldn't expect to necessarily hear, but you're going to hear all of those things in the same set. So our idea is always to be bringing people along. So hopefully you're going to be hearing something that you love, and then we're going to put it up against something that might be unfamiliar to you, but because you loved that last thing, you're a little more open-minded to hear this next thing. So if you're playing all music that people don't recognize, then that can feel very alienating and maybe feel like, oh, this isn't for me. But if we're being really intentional about storytelling when we're building our sets and really trusting our listeners that they're going to be able to experience this music and let it become a new favorite, because it's very easy to continue to listen to the music that you listened to when you were a teenager, right? Like you kind of get stuck in a mode of like, that was my favorite music and I'm going to continue to listen to that. But if we gradually play that music that you loved when you were 15 years old, for example, and put it up against something new and refreshing, it can slowly help you build a new repertoire of music. And that story about people connecting through KEXP, that has been fairly natural, I would say, our best marketing tool are our listeners. And we have some hardcore fans, and we hear it all the time that our hardcore fans are the ones who are going around preaching the good word about KEXP and literally telling everyone they know about us until they wear them down and they start listening. And it happens with families too. Parents get really excited about KEXP and they're always listening to it. And so their kids grow up listening to it, and it becomes a point of connection that can last over the years. So again, that trust, that wide breadth of music, playing something you know you're going to love, challenging you to learn something new, and connecting through community, knowing that you can talk to each other about it. And you can also talk to each other through the DJs by sending in messages and having us reflect those messages and request back in the community is just so meaningful for people. And that really keeps people connected.
That's amazing. You're right. And I can attest to that. You put a lot out there just now, but I can hear it, that first of all, you can get, the reason I never listen to Spotify or things like that is the algorithms. I don't want that tunnel vision. I don't want to be comfortable all the time. I want to hear something that's something brand new. And the DJs, and I got to say, you've got like 49 or 50 DJs. It's all human curated, and they're very genuine. They know they'll get a song in from a listener, and they will take that. They will preview it, I think, before, and then they will bring it to the audience. They'll say, "Hey, I just heard about this today from Mike in Spokane, and I think it's really great. I want you guys to hear it." And so I hear that all the time too. So. Yeah, it's really amazing what you're doing with that. We'll come back to you later when we talk about video and things like that, because that's another big part of the story, I know. Sammy, do you want to, tell us a little bit about, what's Bauer Media doing for audience, grabbing that, even the younger audience, retaining them? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I can share the stories from the Finnish market, because the Finnish market is slightly different than the Swedish market. In Finland, we have 17 stations, which is quite a lot in taking in consideration there's only 5.5 million people living in Finland. But 17 stations in our portfolio, that means we have both the opportunity and the obligation to target our stations to different target groups in order the stations not to kind of cannibalize each other's too much. And for that reason, we also have like 2 stations that are more focused on the younger audiences, the ones that we are already kind of seeing as slightly problematic, as the younger audience, like I said, is not listening to radio as much as previous generations did. So the 2 stations in our portfolio that we are aiming for the younger audience are Energy and a station called Suomi Rap. So with Energy, we have decided to, in a way, I use the term sleep with the enemy and play strong with the social media. This means, of course, being active in all relevant platforms, all the channels, and having presenters and personalities who also are having audiences in social media by themselves and are creating social media by themselves. This also means we have accepted that they might have some side businesses as social media influencers or whatsoever, where we don't have any earnings, but it's just the game we need to play in that side. But as an upside, we have also these presenters bringing their audiences for the station that are in a way new audiences for radio. With Suomi Rap, the other station, the name meaning Finnish rap. And believe it or not, but there is a genre for Finnish rap music. So the station plays only Finnish rap, and our strategy is different. There is a strong scene and a lot of artists who are representing Finnish rap, and they have strong bond with their fans. So since day one, we decided that we will create a strong bond with these artists, and have created features like Studio Live, where Finnish rap artists come to our broadcast studio. They're starting doing their songs in there, and our on-air presenters are joining them, and obviously that's shared in radio, but also in different social media things. And then one thing we have is annual Suomi Rap Gala event, where we award the best Finnish rap artists, but also present newcomers and start creating bond with those artists even before they are like radio level in that sense. So I would say strong social media is one of the strategies, and then creating the bond with the artists that are already important for the listeners.
Sammy, did you say when those rap artists come on into your studio, are they they're not going live per se, but you're creating podcasts with them?
They're live. They're live. They're doing their songs live on air. So and they might do like three songs live on air, and our presenters, they think they have top level rapping skills. I would say it's average or middle, but they are joining the songs and doing some doubling with the top level artists, which is something you don't hear that often. I'm not saying you always want to hear, but it's like, and it's extremely nice because also these top artists are like, yeah, it's great to have this B-level rapper supporting me, but in a way, let's do it still. So it's a nice kind of a communal thing. We're in the same rap family in those moments.
Sounds like a lot of fun too.
It is definitely
amazing. Hey, I saw a question came up. Oh yeah, thanks for putting it back up, guys. To Morgan, just before we get too far off. Morgan, did you see the question about this? This is interesting.
Yeah. I did. So our time spent listening, that's what TSL stands for if you're not familiar. Our time spent listening can vary. From our last report, our time spent listening is about 4 hours, and that's across our broadcast and online streaming. Just anecdotally, during the pandemic, during the height of lockdown, we built a ton of audience. People discovered us because they were spending so much time at home and wanted to hear friendly human voices. And our TSL went up to about 9 hours during the pandemic, which meant that people were waking up in the morning and turning the radio on and never turning it off until they're ready for dinner to go to bed, which is pretty incredible. And then the second question here, are the tracks that we play tested? Absolutely not. We have a music director, a music direction team, I should say, a music director and an associate music director. And we get so much music sent to us passively, just from bands and from radio promo and from labels, that they spend almost a majority of their entire week just processing music that's sent to us and listening to it. And really what they're doing is filtering the best of the best for to put in front of the DJs. So they're writing reviews, they're writing recommended go-to tracks for us DJs to listen to as a first step. And they're literally adding hundreds of options into our new music rotation. And among that, each of our DJs picks only what they want to play. And so our curation is entirely in the hand of the DJ who is currently on the air. Our rule is don't play anything you don't like, but play something you like. So if a DJ is sent a track personally to their email, a minute before they go on air or while they're on air, and if they preview it and they like it, as long as it follows our FCC guidelines, because you can't play curse words on the terrestrial broadcast still, they can get it on air immediately. It's completely up to them. We trust our DJs and we trust our audience.
And I can say as a listener it's so organic and so exciting, to know that, whoever, just got this in, they listen to it, they're like, I want to share it right now. It's right. Great. Okay.
Yep. Love music.
Right. Excellent. Thank you for the question there, Lord. Hey, switching gears a little bit to spoken word now. Gabrielle, from news and information point of view, can you tell us a little bit about, your theory and practice for grasping the younger audience, or just the audience in general, bringing them to radio if that's the case? Like I said, I know from my own kids' point of view that they send me articles all the time from Gothamist. So it's working for my family. Tell us what you're seeing and what your strategy is.
Yeah, at New York Public Radio, we're kind of already set up as like an ecosystem of brands. So we have WNYC on the radio, that also exists in digital space and podcast space. And then our primary online news outlet is called Gothamist. And these two things work in tandem together. The reporters are the same reporters for both mediums. They produce digital stories and audio stories. They also help my team create social videos and email content and social media content. So really, I think connecting with new and different audiences while maintaining the ones that you have, and more importantly, teaching people to cross mediums, is about thinking about your content as a whole connected digital ecosystem where everything is working together and talking together. One of the best ways that we do this at New York Public Radio is to design verticals and segments that go across mediums. So something that has an on-air component, that has an email component, that has a social media component, and has a web component as well. We've done this with our transit vertical. Transit is some of the most popular news in New York. Just about everybody takes the subway, no matter how much money they have or don't have. It's sort of like the great equalizer. And
very important.
As the subway turns, the city turns. When subways aren't running, when buses aren't running, the whole world here shuts down. So seeing that transit news did really well online, we created an on-air segment about that, where every week our transit team comes on with one of our hosts and talks about the issues or great things happening in transit this week. So subway expansion, subway collapse, prices going up, going down, that sort of thing. And that vertical has an email newsletter that goes out each week, as well as an online version of this roundup, in addition to the regular transit stories that we're reporting every day. The other thing I'll say not to leave out of this is in-person engagement. We actually have an event coming up around SAR Transit Vertical in a couple weeks. And I think that, I've seen success in linking all of these things together and using the digital as an opportunity to say, tune in and hear this great conversation that you can kind of only get if you listen, whether you're streaming live or you're listening live on terrestrial radio. Don't forget to sign up for our email newsletter, where you get this information brought directly to your inbox and positioned in a little bit of a different way. And all of this gives you the opportunity to keep up with our transit news. So, that's been pretty successful for us, so much so that we duplicated it with our local politics vertical. And soon we're going to launch a lifestyle and culture vertical that sort of does the same thing. So as opposed to digital being a place where you're giving up on your terrestrial audience, it can be an opportunity to expand your brand and bring that to new people. I'll say that I've worked at a number of public radio stations, and both places that I've worked and people that I've talked to at different places. Often I hear people say in this day and age, there's no money for marketing anymore. We have no marketing money. Yet these places generally pay 1 to 5 people to do social media and email engagement. That's your marketing money. So like, you've decided to invest in marketing your content, you need to think about not just reaching audiences where they are, but also how you're telling them about your brand when you're there, how you're telling them about your station, how you're creating that sort of community that KEXP creates, in digital space, in audio space, and in physical space. So one of my sort of labors of love is creating this sort of multimedia content and seeing how people in, Steve, you talked about your family, people in different age groups and different generations really do love the same type of content. Content is king. It's just about connecting with people on the platforms that there are on and letting them know about the other places where they could be getting things.
Yeah, and Gabrielle, not to state the obvious, but it's super local. It's hyper local. It's not, you're not going to hear this on a satellite feed, a satellite channel or something like that. It's hyper local, and it affects the people, as they're commuting or as they're going about their day. The Gothamist emails come in. If you're a subscriber, it's like 3 times a day, is it not?
Yeah, thereabouts. We have a morning email newsletter that is more curated and has a voice. A writer on my team writes that and puts a lot of work into it every morning. It's also not just our news, it's news from other outlets around the area. The goal behind that is we want to be a one-stop shop for you. We want to be the one newsletter that you have to subscribe to. And I think part of the reality of that is that we can't all, even in a hyper-local situation, create all the content that someone needs. So As opposed to seeing that as ceding ground to competitors or someone else, we see it as an opportunity to create a community and ecosystem. And one of the things that I love most about our morning newsletter is actually the online version. So we create sort of a blog style version of our morning newsletter every morning, and we have very active commenters on Gothamist, to the point where every once in a while we'll remind them, hey, instead of reading this online, you could get it in your inbox. And their response is like, we're not here to read your news. We're here to talk to each other about the news in our community, right? Like, they have created their own community. These folks are so loyal and so engaged that they created their own Discord channel, before we could even create one. And so that is bringing a whole new, not just generation, but like totally different demographic of users to the WNYC brand and the radio brand than would have been there without, Gothamist and those sort of digital tools as a means of discovery.
Mm-hmm. Amazing story. That's great. Hey, Mac, we're going to get to you next, but first, just a couple quick things.
No
First of
worries.
all, I do want to say thank you to RCS for sponsoring this event. Full disclosure, I'm an end user. That's a big part of our station. It's what powers the on-air delivery system for New York Public Radio. So I know firsthand what kind of company that is, and they really stand behind us, and likewise. So thank you for RCS for sponsoring this. Secondly, Sammy, I think there's this question that came up from Alex, and maybe you could just talk about that real quick before we get too far removed from what you told us before.
Yeah, I mean, the question is about what's the take on creating a playlist based on trending songs on YouTube or Spotify. And 25 minutes ago, I would have started the answer by saying that, well, we all know that radio has played important role in presenting music and new artists and new songs for the audience, but this is not the case anymore. But I've been extremely inspired by Morgan and the way you're presenting how your station is doing it. So because you're taking radio back to its original roots in order to be a extremely strong curator. I would say what we're doing, we're checking what is trending on YouTube, what's trending on Spotify, but we all the time we kind of need to understand that list is corrupted in many ways. It is corrupted by the algorithms that they use, and it's also corrupted by the heavy users that are nowadays listening the same song over and over like 20 or 40 times in a row. So we kind of need to know that. I would say those lists are used just to double check that nothing doesn't get like bias. So we kind of if something is trending, we should check that, okay, this is trending, and let's investigate a bit more. But are we using those playlists and their kind of lists to kind of create our own playlists, in the sense of what's trending in Spotify is not going to our A list per se, that it's trending there. So we're checking it, we're using it, but we are not really relying on that one.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. Great. So Mac, let's turn to you now. So you've heard a lot of innovative ideas and what people are executing on to innovate their stations and to bring audience about. All this takes money to pay your DJs, pay your infrastructure. How are you supporting stations from your services and ad insertion and things like that?
Thanks, Steve. So I don't want to necessarily speak about Africa as a monolith, because obviously we are a continent of 54 countries. However, there are certain things that ring true across the continent. We are the fastest growing continent. The majority of the population is under the age of 21, and that is also increasing. Traditionally, we've been very much so oral based in terms of how we pass down messaging from generation to generation. And three, still radio is king in terms of what advertisers decide to do for their budgeting. Yes, there are some constraints, of course, but nevertheless, when you think about the split between TV and radio, oftentimes radio is number one in terms of consumption, right? So kind of just setting the tone for that. For the markets that I really want to touch upon, I'm going to say Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, because those are our top three markets, and just kind of sharing examples from those spaces. So yes, there have been some pressures in terms of budgets for traditional radio. And, during the COVID period really brought on an opportunity to now get digital audiences tapped in, and more so the leadership at these traditional media companies to buy into the fact that digital is in fact the future. actually the present, and that they need to spend a lot more time concentrating on how they build their digital audiences, especially around the youth. So first and foremost, it's meeting them where they are, right? So the youth primarily are using social media to congregate and engage. So obviously you have to be able to ensure that the content that you're presenting is available everywhere for consumption, right? You can't just limit it to your website or mobile application, but you have to be able to also identify popular areas on social media where they can come and consume the content as well. Secondly, what content is most engaging for them? So now we're seeing podcasts. Traditionally, it had been, recording on-demand content and making it available for podcasting. That's what a lot of the news media groups were doing. And then they realized that, okay, for the youth populations, that yes, they may inherit their parents' listening habits and listen to the stations because it was just what was playing around. Well, what content can we create specific for them? So you're starting to see a lot of rebranding. For example, Radio Africa Group in Kenya has Songa Play, which is a standalone branded platform for on-demand consumption, audio and video, right? And the reason they did that is because they realized that, okay, maybe in terms of brand recognition, children may not think Radio Africa is sexy, so to speak. So let's create this standalone product where we can drive audiences to, create an experience for them, add discoverability so that, once we identify what they're interested in, we can continue to give them that content, and they start to see a huge growth there as well, right? So it looks completely different from their traditional website and mobile application, but it has all of their news media platforms on there. Plus, they've sourced additional content from around the world to ensure that it's kind of like a one-stop listening opportunity where you can come and access content accordingly, right? So we've seen a lot of youth growth there as well. Now, when you think about, for example, there's an organization called Farm Radio, and I'm a big fan of them because they produce content for the farming season to educate you on what to do for particular crops. And they've done a really good job in creating the content that is digestible for people who may not have formal education. But in addition to that, they make it appealing for the youth as well. And the reason why that becomes relevant is because, underemployment, let's say, is extremely high across the continent. However, a lot of these countries have agrarian bases. So to have programming that is taking the youth in mind and giving them an opportunity to create value in terms of employment opportunities has been a great addition as well. So we've seen quite a few of our publisher clients adopt this in different regions as well, right? And this is all in an effort to drive the youth populations, because I think when you consider audiences like 45 and plus, I would say that they're very sticky when it comes to traditional media. They will listen to what they've been listening to that was passed down, whether it's across traditional lines, tribal lines, political lines, they're tapped in. Now, the youth, they are a little bit more picky. So you have to ensure that this content you're creating is compelling for them. And when it comes to music specifically, African music has become extremely popular. I mean, I'm sure everybody is quite familiar with Afrobeats now, right? So these local state Afrobeats, shout out to South Africa, I'm a piano as well. Kenya does really good with electric, they call it unts. So I just want to be able to also reflect on those markets as well. And what they're doing that is very interesting is not only getting the musicians in, but now there's been a huge resurgence since 2019 of people of the African diaspora, not just Africans, but Black culture across the world traveling back to the continent. And so these stations have really done a good job in reaching out to these musicians and artists that are traveling to their countries, bringing them into the studios and connecting them with local artists as well to kind of have an engagement. in the studio. And once those in-studio engagements are happening, then they're doing in-person activations as well, where, of course, Ghana and Nigeria is very known for something called Deti December, which is the Christmas period where you have literally millions of people traveling to Ghana and Nigeria. And so you see a lot of this engagement as well. And that kind of helps build the youth attachment to these various news media platforms, because then they're bringing the artists, they're sponsoring programming, and that also helps build stickiness as well. So those are some of the trends that we've been seeing across the continent to help build the youth audience while retaining the 45 and plus audiences on traditional news media platforms.
Amazing, Mac. A lot going on there.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say most of that is new to me. I'd never heard of farm radio before.
Okay. They're
No.
NGO based out of Canada, actually, that does a lot of good work across the continent of Africa.
Really? Okay. Amazing. All right. Great stories there. I did see, here's a question that's up here from Ninja. However, wouldn't that risk the playlist sounding like different stations based on selective taste? Oh, I guess this goes back to, I don't know. Does this go back to Morgan or, I see. Right. I think this goes back to Morgan. Wouldn't it risk the playlist sounding like different stations based on selective taste? Do you want to speak about that, Morgan?
Sure. Well, I don't think we risk sounding like other stations for a lot of different reasons. But if you listen to KEXP over the course of 24 hours, or if you're feeling very adventurous over the course of our entire week, we have so many different programs. So our core daytime programming is what we just call variety mix, which means you're hearing any genre, any time period. It's fair game. Half new music, half older music. That's basically the general rubric for our variety shows. You're also going to hear a lot of specialty genre shows. So we have a modern Latin music show. We have a global music show. We have a psychedelic music show. We have a show called Eastern Echoes, which is music from the Asian diaspora. We have a show called The Continent, which is music from the African diaspora. We have a hip hop show. We have a Pacific Northwest local music show. We have a Bay Area local music show. We have a sort of goth dark wave show called Mechanical Breakdown. We have a punk rock show. We have a metal show. So
don't forget the country shows, Swinging Doors.
Yeah, we have a show called The Roadhouse, which is Roots Americana. And I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two, but we have music for everyone. So it can be a great entry point if you're interested in connecting with your personal community through music. It can be a great entry point if maybe you're trying to learn Spanish and you'd like to tune into El Sonido to hear music in Spanish to help you with your language skills. Maybe you just want to hear music from all over the world and really deep dive into certain genres. That can be an amazing entry point. And then for our daytime listeners, it's really about being exposed to all kinds of music and letting it wash over you in a way, but also having that human connection with the personalities of the hosts and hearing that direct conversation between our on-air hosts and our listeners via the messages that they send us. So there's so much to explore at KEXP, and that there can be entry points for everyone.
And there's the connection between the the DJs and the audience, but also the performers. I mean, let's go ahead and brag a little bit. There's something like 300 live performances a year. That's like almost one a day. I'll tune in during the middle of the day, and it's a midday show, and now there's a band that's showing up. I just came back from the NAMM show in LA, the National Association of Music Merchants, 60,000 musicians basically. And everyone I talked to that was in the Pacific Northwest, they made a point to say that, when I'm in Seattle, I just pop into their studio. There's always somebody performing there. So that's a huge part of it too. Let's Let's segue quickly just into the video aspect, because that's a huge part of your thing too. All those live performances, they wind up as video podcasts, basically. I mean, I don't know what your numbers are like on YouTube, but I know from personal experience, when I search, if I hear a band, I search for them online, it comes up in two places. It comes up on the NPR Tiny Desks, and it comes up at KEXP.
Yeah.
And there's just so many performances. Can you tell us a little bit about how, what the effort was behind that, and how that's paying off for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our Live on KEXP program is our other core program. Obviously, we have the broadcast and we have Live on KEXP, and there's a lot of overlap between those. So historically, we had something in the range of 500 live performances on air every year, but this was before we were prioritizing video. So we just wanted to get in as many bands as possible and expose as many bands as possible to our on-air broadcast. And so we would have sometimes 2-3 bands on a day, just audio only, just churning through them. But the video program happened quite naturally, actually. So around the year 2008, we got a grant to get a couple of cameras and some video recording software, and it went into a closet because no one knew how to use it. So a couple of our volunteers here at the time were like, hey, can we just play with that camera and try it out? And our programming director at the time, Kevin Cole, was like, sure, go for it. So one of their friends' bands was recording in the studio, and they're like, hey, do you mind if we film you? And tried it out. And so they just kept asking bands when they would come in, hey, do you mind if we film you? And just taught themselves how to record the live performances and how to edit the video. And YouTube was a very new thing at the time. I think YouTube started in 2007, and we posted our first video in 2008. And our first official ones was the band Foals. And so it happened quite naturally. And so our core video team, our video team manager, Jim Beckman, and our senior program video producer, Scott Holpainen, they're the original pioneers of the KEXP video program, and they are still here. They are completely self-taught. It was just trial and error. And we moved from a smaller building to our beautiful studio now. So if you look at our Live on KEXP performances on YouTube now, we have like the very professional lights and the big live room. But back in the day, it was a small room with like Christmas lights in the background. But it was just a very natural thing where, YouTube was catching on, and we were kind of at the forefront of posting live performances videos there. And the quality and skills that our video team grew along the way really made it enticing for bands to come in and want a portfolio piece of a live performance video. Not many people were doing it at that time. And our reputation for being kind to bands and creating a wonderful experience while they're here in the studios and treating people with respect and really caring for the art that each individual artist is making, it caught on and the word spread. So artists were telling each other about how great of an experience they were having at KEXP. And so more bands were saying yes to having their performances filmed, which was a very unnatural thing at the time. You're like, I don't want my performance filmed. That sounds stressful and I don't want to do that. But of course, now that we're in the high internet age, everything is filmed. It's an expectation. So when we moved into our current facilities in 2016, we cut actually the number of in studios that we had in half. So now we do 250 a year because each one of them is filmed. And of course, the studio production takes a lot more time to set up. There's so much more gear and people and lots of different factors, but every single one of them is filmed. And so since 2008 to today, we have something like over 20,000 live performance videos posted on KEXP's YouTube channel. We currently sit at 3.79 million subscribers. We have billions of views. And yeah, to your point, Steve, if we build so much audience just by people looking for bands on YouTube or it being served to them in the algorithm, and then our very iconic lights become a click in people's heads. Oh, this is KEXP. Okay. But it's funny. A lot of people don't know, if they've discovered us through the YouTube channel, that we're also a radio station. They think we just do live performances. So there is still this gap of helping both of our audiences on both sides understand that we are the same entity, and that they can consume both the live performance videos and the radio broadcast. But it's an amazing way to connect with audience all over the world through those live performance videos. That's for sure.
Right. And, so we're going to open that up for discussion too, because, Anthony here states a great question, building the next audience and talking about podcasts and the visuals, right? But where does this leave radio, which is primarily audio? Gabrielle, we know the Gothamist is a website. But are you seeing people like discovering WNYC through the website and then listening to radio? Or doesn't it matter as long as people just discover the brand New York Public Radio? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. First, I'll say that, I can see digital tools move the needle on air or across other platforms. We have an app here at WNYC at New York Public Radio. So something that we often do if someone big is going to be on air is push tune in through that app. Now, like regular rote tune in, like just tune in for this regular thing that comes on every day at 5 p.m. That I have not seen be super successful across digital platforms across my career. But when something big is happening, like Inauguration Day here in New York City, we had a new mayor that lots of people across the country and the globe were excited about. The conversion rates on our app, generally the click-through rate is about 3%. For something like that, the click-through rate is like 7 or 8%. That's like 100,000 people who are often streaming us through a digital platform. That is something that takes infrastructure and money. But if you have the ability to set up a live stream, I suggest that you do that. We can see that movement across the board, and it goes both ways. When we do that transit segment that I talk about every day, we encourage people to sign up for the newsletter, and that is the primary driver of sign up growth for the newsletter. So there are like specific ways that you can do messaging on social media and online with sort of trackable URLs, so you can kind of see what your conversion rates are. And, this isn't a thing where you get like a dump of you're going to double your audience through one of these pieces of messaging. But when you create these connected ecosystems over time, you do see the needle moving. And I think, even the KEXP, we have a classical station here. I've worked at other public radio stations that had AAA discovery stations like KEXP. It's really the community that people want, and they will cross mediums if you create that community. So, those recorded videos that Morgan was talking about are also on air. I've worked at a station I used to work at in Kentucky. We did those two components, and you could come into the studio and watch the performance live if you were a member. And so like that definitely drove people to tune in when they were in their car, to try to make it in person when it was a band that they liked, to watch it back on YouTube or online, and like create this connected ecosystem where people are engaging with you across platforms. And more importantly, all of this is about revenue. Morgan and I work in a membership model where people donate money to support the station, where people want to donate to support that. And these digital streams become new places where you can find revenue, even if it's incremental, to add to what you're doing on air. I'm sure KEXP has been on YouTube for a long time. I'm sure their monetization is pretty good. We are been invested in video and growing our YouTube audience. This past year we grew from 3 million, 5 million views. These sorts of things are things that help build up audio infrastructure and give you other means to even promote and market your on-air destination.
Yeah, wonderful. Sammy, what do you think about that? You're doing visuals. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm answering this from the personal point of view in a way that sometimes I'm watching something from the big screen, and at the same time I scroll the news or social on my phone. So basically what I find out is actually, though I'm saying I'm watching it from the big screen, I'm actually listening the content from the big screen. So basically I would say from the radio business perspective and from the audio business perspective, we are strong in this game, since if there's no visuals with the audio, that's still radio or that's still podcast. But if there's no audio with the visuals, that's actually nothing. So basically, I would say this creates a great opportunity. but the basics is like built on the podcasting or the radio content, and it's spiced up with the visuals.
Sure, sure. And look, just from my perspective of terrestrial broadcast, we were an innovator with HD radio back, in 2000. And so for us, we always strive to put rich media out there, because about 60% of the vehicles in New York City, that's like 4.5 million cars, have HD radios now. So we want to make sure that we have the logos up. We want to make sure on our classical station that we have album art showing. Then on WNYC and the News and Information channel, we want to make sure that we have segment level metadata up in the car radio, because we realize that we're competing against Spotify, CarPlay and Android Auto and satellite XM, and they're all rich with media. So we have to really basically compete to get that visual attention in the dashboard to level the playing field there too. So visuals are important even in terrestrial broadcast. I see there's a question that came up here. I saw a question that went by in French, and I think Philippe, you might have in the back end, you might have translated it. This is the one, right? How can music be used as a hook, a reason to listen to radio programs? Anybody want to take that? I'll just open that up.
I'll say before the music experts chime in, something that I think is interesting is that even in the news and information space, people get captivated by the music that they hear in the background. There is a particular piece of rote music that we play over a segment that we have every week, and literally every week we get an email from somebody saying, "What is that music?"
Really?
There are certain national shows in particular that I think that are well known for their background music. Marketplace is a pretty popular show on public radio in the United States. It is often known for its music, and part of the reason people tune in is to hear those things going together. So I'll turn it back over to the music experts, but I'll say even in that space, the entire oral experience is part of it, and people don't want to just hear talking. There is some connectivity and even ways to signal what's going on in popular culture and in the world. For some of these older institutional American public radio shows, I think it is one of the ways that they signal younger people, we see you, because they're playing artists that younger people are listening to, even just in the interstitial music in the background.
Sure, even on the show called Marketplace, which is a daily show about business and the market, and you immediately know if the stock market is up or down by the type of music they play. They play one of two songs, and it's an upbeat song if it's up, and it's a slow ballad if the market's down. So, but anybody else want to comment on the music as a hook? All right, let's go on to this question from Mortada from Morocco. Do you think giving listeners the ability to influence music programming through digital polls, votes, or track selection could act as a lever to attract and recruit new audiences, particularly younger and digitally native listeners? Interesting question.
Yeah, I'll say that I've worked at several stations, and we do this at WQXR, our classical station, around the holiday times that do countdowns. And different countdowns are a great way to bring in new and different audiences around specific genres or specific eras. At the station that I used to work at in Kentucky, we did a lot of them around decades, so much so that we kind of ran out of decades and went to albums of the decade as opposed to songs of the decade. But these are things where they have an engagement component where people get to vote online. People kind of want to listen in. So even though our TSL at that station was already very high, it would go up a little bit during the countdown because people want to listen in to hear the next song on the countdown. And then there's sort of great social components that you can do with this. If you're in a place that has great local artists that people really know and love and have a following, you can integrate them into that as well and do content with them or bring them in the studio. There's a band out of Louisville, Kentucky called My Morning Jacket that is very popular among alternative listeners in the public radio community, and so they would inevitably end up in some countdown somehow, and we'd be able to bring them physically into the studio or even incorporate a giveaway to tickets to their shows. So I think there are lots of ways that you can use digital engagement to hook people and then connect them to other mediums.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do countdowns and voting too. So we'll oftentimes do countdowns in conjunction with our fundraising drives. So we'll the month before our fundraising drive, we'll do a campaign where we're asking people to vote on a certain topic. Like it can be your favorite album, like our listeners' favorite albums of all time, or the best opening tracks on an album, for example. And then we'll do the countdown during the fundraising drive. So we're capturing audience that wants to hear the countdown, but then we're also able to have a captive audience to ask them to to give a gift to KEXP and make sure that they're supporting this station. We also do a countdown every year about the favorite albums, listeners' favorite albums of the year of that year. So we just did listener voted top 100 albums of 2025, for example. So we do that every single year. We also naturally integrate requests into our daily programming. So we're always soliciting listeners to reach out and let us know what they want to hear. There's song dedications that people do for birthdays or deaths or anniversaries, or just because somebody wants to hear a particular song. We do that all the time. And then we also just have general all request days where it could be general thanks for being donors so that we can let people know what our model is. Or sometimes we're just like, the vibe out there is that we need a request day. So we'll just call it, so our DJs have that freedom to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to comment on the marketing thing because, for example, if usually your DJs are allowed to play whatever they want, and now you have this kind of a polling with the audience, that's almost like being mainstream as we others are, because so that's like almost taking a step towards us, the normal stations in that sense, to giving the power out from the DJ for the audience.
Well, it's not taking the power away from the DJ, because if the DJ doesn't like the request, they won't play it. So
yeah, sure.
There is very much still huge curation going on. But I think a lot of our listeners, if they're tuning into a certain show, they also know generally what the DJ's music taste is, which is very broad already. So, if you're tuning into me, you may know that my favorite band is Radiohead. So if you request Radiohead, the likelihood of me playing it, pretty good. So there is still very much the DJ is in control of the curation. But what it does do, Sammy, is it makes it so that the DJ has to be very flexible and multitask all the time. So we're not planning out our shows from hour one to finish. It's very flexible what we're doing, because we're responding to the world that's going on around us. If an artist passed away during the show, I'm tearing it all up and we're paying homage, or I'm working in requests. So everything has to be very flexible. It's a lot of multitasking and quick decision making.
Yeah. And if I could say one thing about the homage, I remember when Ozzy Osbourne passed away that day, and they didn't just play Black Sabbath all day long, but you played, Turnstile, you played all these different bands that were influenced by Black Sabbath.
Yep.
And it was all day long, and it was immediate. Once the word was out, it was like, yep. Forget the playlist. And I don't know how you curated so many, because it wasn't that obvious, how you curated so many tunes and music that was, from the influence there, but it was quick and it filled the entire day. So
our DJs have encyclopedic knowledge of music, and we also have, especially in the daytime, we have producers who are working alongside our daytime DJs. And so if something happens like that, the producer's immediately researching and adding music to our system and just getting resources to the DJ's fingertips immediately. Also, our listeners, again, are like giving us tons of ideas, especially when we pass away. Yeah. We get tons of feedback from our listeners and integrate that too.
Sure. And we look, we're coming close to the time here, but I want to make sure we don't miss the point. We've talked about apps. Everybody's talked about apps, but I got to say, let's, state the obvious. Those are completely important. And the KEXP app, you don't know how many times I'm working on a project in the basement. I have the station on. I hear something that comes across. It's like, wow, what is that? I got to look that up later. I'll take a screenshot of my phone so I can get I look at the playlist on the app. The app is so full of metadata. It's like an encyclopedia. It's like a Wikipedia of that artist for that day, or for that song. And so, I think everybody should, pay attention to your apps too for that audience engagement.
You don't have to take screenshots, Steve. You can hit the heart button and it creates a list of your favorites. So you've made your own playlist.
That's a great point. Yeah, I'm a little old school on that, but I have to come back to that. Thanks for the reminder. Listen, we're coming close to time. We've been told we can go over a little bit because it's a very intriguing conversation. And I think between Morgan and Sammy, I think you've even got a show in the works here that you're collaborating on. So great use of the hour here.
If I can choose the music.
Okay, then you're a DJ. Okay, get that CEO title out of the way. We're gonna. Okay. Well, we are coming to the top of the hour. Before I forget, I want to give another thanks to RCS for sponsoring this day. Really incredible conversation here. We're going to, for those who can stay, we're going to go just a little longer and just to kind of wrap up because there's a interesting question here, and then I think we'll wrap up if you guys can stay. So let's see, what are the thoughts on radio stations creating playlists that sit on streaming platforms like Spotify, etc.? The idea is to overlay digital and traditional media. The lure of artists to radio was that they can discover me, but how discovery happens on a lot of streaming platforms. Is it viable to have radio stations create playlists on those platforms? And if they can, what is it to say that these streaming platforms don't showcase those playlists? Interesting. There's a combination of playlist to go into Spotify. Well, talking about sleeping with the enemy, Sammy.
Yeah. I was supporting with that idea like 10 years ago, and I was asking already like stations and DJs to create those playlists on the station by station level, but we're not doing that anymore. So I haven't told not to do it, but I don't see any value on that one.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, here's another question. Other side.
Real quick.
Sure, Mary.
We passively create playlists on Spotify and Tidal based around our new music rotation because it's been a great resource for our DJs to be able to listen to a giant playlist of all of the new ads when you're prepping your show. Our audience is there anyway, following us anyway, so we let them listen to our new music. They're not sequenced. It's just here's all the new music that's added to rotation. Enjoy.
Oh, amazing! All right, I didn't know that. That's clever. Okay. Looks like a last question here on another side of the coin. What is the biggest thing you have stopped doing in the last 12 months, last year, because it looked good on paper but did not move audience or money? Interesting question. The biggest thing you have stopped doing.
So just to chip in here, some of the things that our publishers have stopped doing is actively promoting like third-party platforms. I say that as like a YouTube or other mediums. Like naturally, people are going to go there anyway to consume content. But before, it would be very easy for one of their presenters to say, yeah, if you want to listen to more or find out more about the story, go to our Facebook page or whatever else may have you. Whereas now they're more actively promoting their own and operated websites and mobile applications, right? And they're starting to see incremental audience growth there. Plus, there are more exclusive pieces of content that you can find on their owned and operated platforms versus what they generally make available on third-party platforms. So that's one strategy that we've seen that has been working for some of our publishers.
Interesting point. Okay.
I think I need to go with this question to my content director and hope that there's something they stop doing. But obviously they haven't told me because that actually has been a mistake. So I'm not aware.
Okay. Right. Morgan, here's a question directed to you. Is all this content being monetized? What is the listenership and who is the core target market?
We don't have a target demographic. We are for everyone. I know that sounds crazy, but it's working for us and we love it. is all this content being monetized? So we are a nonprofit. So we do primarily fundraising drives. So 60% of our entire revenue comes from individual donors. So we have dedicated 2-week-long fundraising drives, and then a day drive in the summer. And that brings in about 60% of our revenue. We have sustaining memberships, so we call those amplifiers. That's our ongoing gift program. So we have something in the range of 24,000 amplifiers. So we have expected monthly income that comes in, which really helps us plan our budget. We also have a business support department. So we're asking businesses to spend their marketing dollars with us as sponsors of KEXP. We do, of course, monetize the YouTube channel with those streams. Beyond that, there are a couple of other revenue streams, but that's primarily how we're resourced is directly from our listeners and from business support. What was the other thing I was going to say about that? Oh, I was just going to say we do things a little bit differently here. So one thing I do want to point out, it's less of us making money and more of us paying artists. We implemented a live performance honorarium for every artist that comes and plays at KEXP for a live performance. So as of the last 3 years, I believe, we pay every single artist, doesn't matter what level of status they are. They could be a brand new local band. They can be Tom York and Johnny Greenwood with the Smile coming in. Everyone gets $500. And it's interesting to note that it would take about 150,000 streams to give the equivalent of that $500 to the artist. So we're really trying to be good stewards of our donors' resources and pay it forward as much as possible to the community and to artists, because it's unfortunate that in the world, being a musician is not considered a real career. And we want to flip that script and make sure that people understand that it is a job and they deserve to be paid for it fairly.
Mm-hmm. I did not know that, Morgan. That's amazing. Great. And that's a great metric about the 150,000 streams in Spotify. Yeah, it's like,
I could be off on that, but it's something ridiculous like that.
I bet it's right on. Right. All right. We have one last question, then we're going to break. In an environment of endless entertainment options, what is the new reason to tune in that actually resonates with younger audiences?
I mean, if I may say something on this one, I don't think it's the new reason. I mean, don't take it the wrong way, but we should also, in addition to analyzing all the threats that there are, to be able to analyze all the strengths we have. I mean, it was in the 70s that cassette tapes were blamed that they are killing radio. In 90s, the same was said about the CDs and later the music streaming. And I mean, music TV, MTV made band called Buggles famous as they had the song called Video Killed the Radio Star. Mm-hmm. Well, it didn't. And we all know what happened to MTV. So what I'm saying here is that in the industry, SWOT analyses, we should remember there are always these other boxes also than just the threats. And I would say radio, as it is a unique medium with variety of strengths. And if we don't see those strengths that we have, if we don't believe in those strengths, and if we don't play our game by our strengths, then the question is, should we even be in this business?
Mm-hmm. Great answer, Sammy.
And content is king, right? So the quality of your content really determines your audience share ultimately, right? So
you bet.
From our point of view, it's really human connection. I think there's a huge disconnect from community. And people are realizing that coming back to radio, the way that KEXP does it, I'm speaking from my point of view anyway, is a way to connect with community and be among humans. And we also, we don't ignore what's going on in the world. So you can tune in to a lot of commercial radio stations or other media outlets or Spotify or whatever, and there's no reflection about what's going on in society. There's no reflection about an artist who's passed away, for example, about what's going on with ICE in Minnesota. But we have the ability to speak to all of those things through music, of course, and through channeling our listeners' messages and really actively taking the pulse of how our community is feeling. And we hear time and time again that that's something that people gravitate to KEXP for, is that human connection where they don't feel crazy. They're seeing other humans in the world experiencing what they're experiencing, whether it's something mundane, not mundane in bad way, but just like slice of life, like somebody passing away. We have music days that are dedicated towards grief, for example. We have a Music Heals Day that's dedicated towards mental health, where we're asking people to send in their stories related to those topics and picking a song that helped them move through that process. So just witnessing humanity and having it through the filter of music has meant so much to people. And I don't think that's ever going to go away. That's what people crave.
Yeah. And that was that. Yeah, go ahead, Gabrielle.
I would say people want content that's useful to them, right? So don't think about just what you're putting out there for the sake of putting out there, but how does it make a difference in someone's life? Whether you're creating that community that Morgan is talking about, whether you're giving people a space or a vehicle to process their emotions, whether you're giving them information about how they can get to work today on the train or not, or like what policy is happening in their community, and not just from some 30,000 foot wonky perspective, but how it affects their daily life, what it will mean for them. I think those are always things that people come back for, no matter what.
You bet. You bet. Well, listen, we're going to apologize to anybody who's got other questions. We're going to close for now. We're 10 minutes over. I think we could go on for another hour, but this has been such a great panel. I think everybody, Morgan, Mac, Gabrielle, Sammy, thank you, RCS, for putting this together. And Omar, Philippe, Marguerite in the background running the questions. Thank you, everybody. What a great panel. Really some amazing takeaways from this group. So everybody, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your week. And thanks again. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Radio Week 2026.
Smart ideas for radio and audio operators.